Welcome to the Hope After Child Loss podcast, where we endeavor to offer stories of hope to grieving parents and siblings so that they might rediscover a life filled with meaning, purpose, and hope. We invite you to come and join us. Hey guys, I'm your host, Greg Buffkin, and we're so glad you could join us for today's episode. My guest today is Sitrena Woodson, and she's going to be sharing her story of her daughter, Tiffany, and the journey that she's been on for the last 2 years. Sitrena, welcome to our podcast. It's so good to have you with us today.
Thank you, Greg. I'm glad to be here.
Sitrena, why don't you take a couple of minutes and just tell our listeners a little bit more about you?
I don't know if you call me a midlife or a restructured life, but I am a mid-50 something Nana. I'm a mom. I'm a fur mom. I'm a gardener, and I'm also a grieving mom. I'm a mixed bag right now. I have days when I want to be out on my 3-wheel motorcycle, and then I have days when I just want to sit and ponder just the irony of life. So I'm a mixed bag.
So you're a Nana and you've got a 3-wheel motorcycle. Not every
that gives
Nana,
me my cool points.
Not every Nana has one of those.
Yes, it's quite fun.
I'll bet it is. I'll bet. Well, listen, again, we're really glad that you could join us and that you would entrust your story about your daughter Tiffany to us. So if you're comfortable, why don't you just go ahead and start wherever you would like and tell us all about Tiffany and about this journey that you've been on.
Every time I tell my story, Tiffany comes back to life. So I thank you for the opportunity, because so many people struggle with the conversation, struggle with the concept of death and living beyond the loss of someone that we love. And losing our children has got to be like the most unimaginable, biggest loss that we can incur. I have struggled in the last 2 years. I will never forget 4:27 a.m., February the 15th of 2021. My phone rang. I was 3 weeks to the day post-op of having my pacemaker installed. So I was still recovering, and my phone rang, and I thought it was my son, who's nocturnal, so it's not weird for him to call in the middle of the night. And I thought it was him wanting to ponder life's mysteries while he's at work, because he works nights, because he's nocturnal. So I grabbed the phone, happy-go-lucky. I'm trying to wake up and gather my wits about me, but it was someone on the other end to tell me their exact words was, "Trina, Tiffany just died." So they didn't say, "What are you doing? How are you doing? Is anybody there with you?" They just said, "Trina, I'm calling to tell you Tiffany just died." So I hung the phone up, and I sat up. And then I thought about who had called, and I was like, well, they wouldn't do that. So I called them back, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And so we went through the conversation, and I hung up, and I called my son back. And I called my son, and I told him, "I need you to come and get me. I need to get to Tiffany because they said she just passed away, and I don't understand what's going on." And so while I'm waiting for my son to come, I threw myself physically in the floor and screamed to God, like, what else can I do? What is it that you want from me? I've surrendered all I know. I've given you everything I have. So what else do you want me to do? Because I had struggled just to go through the surgery to get something as simple. Well, at that point, it was simple to get the pacemaker. But when I found out she died from a massive heart attack, I was really having an issue with God. Why would you fix my heart to break my heart by not allowing her heart to sustain when she was 37? My daughter was 37, and there were so many things I started. The mind is just weird. The heart does what it does. Yeah. So I went back and forth through What was I doing at 37? What have I done since I was 37? When my daughter was 15, what were we doing? And why isn't she going to be here with her daughter to do those things? I thought about all of the struggles Tiffany and I had come through because Tiffany was born sickly. She had a seizure disorder. She had some emotional deficiencies. She had hearing deficits. So for all of the milestones we had covered, why, God, why would you do this? Like they say, he answers prayers, and this was an answer, but it wasn't the answer I was looking for. So I went on this terrible faith journey as well. But what I did was 2 days later, I told everybody, I'm going to take Autumn. I know she has a dad and she's familiar with my sister, but I'm going to raise Autumn because that was something that I knew in my heart that Tiffany really would have wanted.
Let me stop you there for a second. Now, is Autumn Tiffany's daughter?
Yes.
Okay.
Autumn is Tiffany's daughter, and she's 15. And I had not seen my granddaughter in quite some time because Tiffany was bipolar and her behavior could be quite erratic sometimes. And with people, right now in society, we have this big thing about mental health. Even though they say my daughter, they could put all these labels on my daughter was my daughter. So I didn't categorize her behavior according to her labels. I categorized her behavior and our interactions according to our personalities. I did not limit my daughter as far as boundaries, as far as limits. They said she wouldn't read past the 3rd grade, and my daughter went on to college and became a licensed esthetician. She was very good at what she did. She was dedicated. She held her own business license. She had a very secure following of clients. I just never limited my daughter. So a lot of people was like, oh, you too hard on her. But the statement she made to me one time is, every time you ask me to do something, I make sure I get it done. And that was a true statement. And that's what she looked to me for. She looked to me to believe in her. She looked to me to have faith in her. And I did. So I didn't ask her to do things past her limits.
Right.
And the things I asked her to do, if she couldn't get it done, she asked me to help her, or she asked me to guide her. But she worked to get them done. So because I had also had to instill boundaries and limits on her, we had a rough spot, and we fell out. We weren't speaking when she passed away.
Sure. That happens with parents and children along the way at times.
Yeah. But as God would have it, I was the one that got to clean out her apartment. So I found her journal and I found the Bible that I couldn't convince her to read when we were speaking, that she had highlighted, the verses, the scriptures that were important to her. So that was my gift from God, because I was so worried. I was so worried about why this happened and what was her life like before she passed, and how am I going to instill my values into my granddaughter if she had no clue. But she did have a clue, because all of the arguments me and my daughter had, she was turned, as we mature, as we age, we mature, and we see the things our parents are saying to us. So even though we weren't together as she started coming to these things, she started coming to the things that I had instilled in her. And she left me a gift. She left me her journal. So she documented, why it was important to take care of her health. She documented why it was important to pay her bills on time and to provide secure housing for her daughter, and to be responsible and accountable for her child, not to leave it to other people. She had pictures of me and pictures of her and pictures of me, her, and her dad when we were a family.
And those things have become treasures to you, haven't they?
Yes. Yes. And her daughter is just a gem. She's 15. Oh. She's very, very quiet. She's not like, and that's another gift, because people were saying to me, well, at least you have your granddaughter. She can replace your daughter. No. because before my daughter died, I had my granddaughter, you
Right.
know, and my granddaughter is always going to be my granddaughter. And my daughter is always going to be my daughter, and nobody can replace one or the other.
Right.
And our relationship is so very different than the relationship I had with my daughter.
Yeah.
Because as my daughter grew up, she, we became kind of friends because she was an adult. I didn't have to always mother her. So we were road hogs. We would go to concerts. We would go to events. We would do weekend trips, not just me, her, and Autumn, but just me and her. And Autumn is so quiet. So we still do road trips, but it's not like the joking and the camaraderie that me and my daughter had when we would be on a trip, and the adventures and so forth. But what me and Autumn do is we garden and we go to church and we discuss the Bible openly, which
Oh,
are things that
wow.
I couldn't do with my daughter. So,
Wow. That,
yeah.
what, what an incredible opportunity you have to speak truth into the life of your granddaughter and just to love on her because of who she is as an individual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, Sitrena, I know that you understand this. Sometimes people, I think, mean well, generally speaking,
Yeah.
and they sometimes they say things before they really think it through.
Right.
Such as that's what I was alluding to when somebody made the statement, at least you still have your granddaughter.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
those really aren't helpful things to say, are they?
No. And
Yeah.
I've done so much research on grief now. I'm also a Toastmaster, so I'm learning public speaking. And I've done so much research on grief, life beyond grief, death and dying, the loss of children, how to get young people through and understand loss and so forth, and the attachment issues and the trauma that comes from losing someone unexpectedly at different
Right.
stages in our life. And they give you these 5 stages of grief. But another gem that I found is that the person who wrote about the 5 stages of grief, they weren't talking about living beyond those stages and all the other stages that are actually a part of grief. They
Oh.
were talking from the point of a person who had been diagnosed with a terminal illness.
Oh gosh.
So they give you 5 stages. I think it's anger, denial, bargaining, acceptance, and I forget the 5th one, but it's just 5. But
Yeah.
I've learned there are so many more different stages of grief. There's bewilderment, there's confusion, there's back and forth. I call it wobbling. One
Yeah.
day you're up, one day you're down. there's
Yeah.
there's restructuring, there's development, because you have to learn how to keep living with this enormous part of you that is now missing. Sometimes people say we are not supposed to bury our children, but also because I read the Bible so much, one of the things that came to me is that God said each and every one of us are individuals, that He has given His set days, number of days on this earth. So nowhere in the Bible does it say, hey, you're not going to bury your children, or you're special if you bury your children, or it's out of order for you to bury your children. He never said that. He said that he numbers each hair on each of our heads individually. So Tiffany had her own story. She had her own life, and her life ended at 37, and at 59, I can look back and say, well, maybe if I'm looking for the gift, maybe I'm looking for the fact that she's no longer struggling physically. She's no longer struggling because she feels that with this bipolar diagnosis that she's not normal or she's not good enough. Maybe now she's at peace and she's at rest because it was a struggle,
Right. And nobody else knows that struggle like she knew it. Not even
Right.
you.
Right. And so, yeah, it's not that she wasn't supposed to die before me. It's just that, God, I wish that she hadn't died before me. But then again, maybe I'm able to offer things to Autumn that she couldn't figure out in time for Autumn to get what she needed. I don't know why He ordered our steps and interactions the way He ordered them, but I have to accept that that's how He ordered it, and I still have to do my best to live out his will for me each and every day.
Right. Yeah, that's well said, Sitrena. And we know that, the scripture tells us that his ways and his thoughts are higher than ours. And
Yes.
there are things on this side of heaven that we're not going to ever understand. And there are
Right.
questions that we're never going to get the answers to.
Right.
That's where faith comes in, and where we have to, if we're in a relationship with him through Jesus, we trust, knowing that he's a good father. And he knows what our children were experiencing. He knows the trials that they were going through that nobody else knows. And so I think that when we talk about the natural order of things, now you're right about because scripture does not address that directly. I think it's just for parents to lose a child. It's just an unthinkable loss,
Because we plan so much.
Yeah.
We look so forward to their lives. We look so forward to all of the things that maybe we didn't do right that we could see our kids do right. We invest. We just put so much into our children, and to see it complete, we don't want to see it complete because we want them to have so much in life.
Absolutely.
We can't imagine it being complete.
No. And, you have those, what we call future grief. It's grieving those things that never will be.
Yes.
And that's, sometimes it's hard for other people to understand that, but it's very much a reality.
Me and Autumn are doing college tours. She's college bound next year.
Oh, wow.
So on our first college tour, I try to make everything an adventure. I try to make everything upbeat. I'm not your mom. I can't replace your mom, but I just want you to have the best experiences you can have from here until. So we're excited, and we're in the car, and we're driving, and everything is great. We're planning out the day, and we get there, and we have all our pamphlets and information. And in one blink of an eye, all I kept thinking is, oh my God, we're doing college tours and her mom isn't here to see it. And then I was a puddle for high school graduation she's going to miss. Becoming a grandmother. I was in the delivery room where it was me, Dad, and Mom. All three of us were in the delivery room when Autumn was born. And Tiffany won't be there to take part in her grandchildren's birth. And, she won't be there to see Autumn graduate from college, and she wants to be a marine biology. So we keep talking about her tagging her first whale tail. She won't. I remember teaching Tiffany how to drive a car, and she won't be here to see Autumn get her driver's license. So as many things as I'm celebrating with Autumn, I can't stop myself from comparing the fact that I'm celebrating, but it just seems out of order. It just seems unfair that I'm celebrating. And I remember so much joy and pride when I celebrated these things with my kids.
Sure.
And Autumn is missing out, or Tiffany is even missing out. But is Tiffany missing out? Because here I go with the faith thing again. Tiffany is looking down on us. So is she missing out?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That always kind of makes me laugh, because I always think about her teasing me, because of the way I think. So.
And that's okay. They're going to tease us about something, right?
Yeah.
Well, I have to say Autumn is so blessed to have a Nana like you who has stepped up and is doing the things that a parent would normally do. And yes, we as grandparents do participate along the way also, hopefully, but this has become your primary role. You're parenting again. And it's not that phase of life where you expected to be a parent again. It's not quite as easy, is it?
It's not quite as easy. And I often tell people, even though Autumn is frequently my passenger on my three-wheeler, whose name is Charlotte, when I first purchased Charlotte, Autumn was a little tyke. Now Autumn is taller than me. So, it's not as, I'm not going to say it's not as much fun, because every time we get on the bike, it's an adventure. It is really a great day. But it's just different when you have a little kid on the back of the motorcycle than when you have a person who's as big as you are, who may not want to ride as long or as far, or who may want to go home before you're ready, or who might want to eat steak and you're ready to go get a hamburger at a little side road place, or
Right.
you know what I'm saying? The dynamics have changed on the motorcycle. But also I used to tell people I don't understand how this happened, because one day I was literally Netflix and chill, and now I'm checking homework and I'm doing proms and I'm managing first time dates, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, the world we live in now and the things that kids are facing. Like when she came to me, we were right in the middle of the pandemic. So she was a freshman in high school, but she hadn't stepped foot in a high school as a student. And so it's all of the things that the children are facing today that I'm having to refamiliarize myself with, all the little different apps and how they can get around the things that I'm trying to prohibit, and how,
Yeah.
it's just like my whole world is changed.
And you didn't get an instruction book for this, did you?
No, and I'm not sure. Well, I did give permission, but I'm not sure I knew what I was signing up for. You're exactly right. No instruction book.
Yeah.
And no real understanding of what my grade is going to be. Like, am I doing a good job, or am I failing miserably and I'm just fooling myself into thinking that everything's going to be okay?
I think all parents and grandparents ask those same questions and have those same doubts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's life.
It is. Sitrena, it's only been 2.5 years for you. What would you say at this point on your grief journey that grief has done to change you? Because it changes all of us.
People tell me almost every day, people that have known me for some time, they either think that I'm more direct and I'm shorter in patience, or they think I'm just so kind and so soft now. They're like, you're different. Is the only thing I hear people say to me quite often, is that I'm different. And I keep telling them, I definitely am. And I hope that whatever has changed me never happens to change you. I hope they never experience what I've gone through to have to go through these changes.
Yeah, I completely agree. From your perspective, that's what they say. From your perspective, how do you think grief has changed you?
It's made me probably a little more introspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably, like before, I had this saying when I turned 50, I'm going to be 50, fabulous, fly, and free. I was always looking, I was always looking for the next, not good time, but I was looking to live my best life. I was looking for my experiences, the things I had not been able to do for myself because I was raising my children or taking care of my parents. And there was always someone I was obligated to. So prior to this event happening, I was traveling. I was able to comfortably purchase a motorcycle because I wasn't responsible for anybody else. I was fixing my house the way I was able to be a little more selfish, more self-centered before this happened. And now I realize that the gift of sharing your life with somebody, I grieved so hard because I loved her so hard.
Sure.
I miss her so much. And it makes me treasure even more the relationship I have with my son. It makes me treasure, but not to idolize, the relationship I have with my granddaughter. It makes me understand I cannot live in fear, because the worst thing that I thought could have happened to me has happened to me.
Yep.
And I'm still living. So I can't live in fear. So if people think I'm a little shorter or a little bit more direct, it's because I look at things a little bit more narrow than before,
Yeah, man, those are some good insights. I appreciate you sharing that. So going back to those first few days and weeks after you lost Tiffany, what did you find was the most helpful things that other people did as they tried to step up and come alongside you? Because some do, some have a tendency to disappear in those moments, but we all remember those people who did it well. So from your perspective, what was it that people did that they did well?
Sometimes just being there. when they say that you get brain fog, you really do. Like I was losing my keys when I never lost my keys before. I was locking myself out of the car. I locked myself out of the house. I mean, like things were really going helter skelter. But I also was cleaning out my daughter's apartment. And so I was inundating my home with stuff. And people was just coming behind me and they were moving things out of the way. You know,
Yeah.
they were helping me clean. They were offering to help me with Autumn, you know, because is she going right back to school? Is she not going back to school right now? Is
Yeah.
she going to take a break? Is she, you know, they were getting me information on my daughter's veterans benefits. They were helping me find programs that would help me get Autumn adjusted and make sure that we got into family counseling. The church surrounded us and they made sure that we didn't, you know, get lost and that we kept coming to church. And now Autumn is serving in church. Yeah, I would say just, you know, just check in and don't do what you think you need. Do what they say they need, or fill a need that you see where they're lacking. You know, like if they're not eating, just keep something there that they can snack on because you're mindless at that time. So, you know, if you can clean. If you can usher or carpool, you know, to provide a safety net for people such as me, you know, then be the chauffeur for them for a couple of days.
Man, everything you said is so important, Sitrena. And I've heard other parents use a lot of the same words, and have shared some of the exact same things that you just did. I think what I heard a lot from you is people stepping up and just doing the practical things that needed to be done. And that just comes simply by showing up and offering the gift of presence, but looking around and just noticing what might need to be done and just simply taking care of it. I think the other thing that I heard is that you have people, so let me use it in present tense. You have people that didn't just fade away over time. You know, after the funeral's over, a lot of people, well, everybody else goes back to their normal daily routine and the normalcy, quote unquote, of their own lives. And your life is anything but normal, and your life has been turned upside down. And so the ones who stay, who don't forget you, but continue to check in and continue to let you know they're praying for you, that they love you, and just ask about you frequently. Talk about Tiffany. You might say, tell me a story about Tiffany. Those are the ones that you treasure. You cannot put a price on that, right?
Yes. Yes. And that's something that you know, if I can encourage people to do anything, is do not let their loss become a ghost. Like, you know, keep Tiffany's name alive. Help me
Right.
tell her stories. You know, come to me sometime and say, I remember when you were doing this with Tiffany, or I remember when Tiffany did that, because her body is gone. Her memory is always going to be alive. Please keep remembering my daughter. She was real and she was here and she was important to me.
Yes.
So, you know, don't just, it might seem weird at first, you know, but yeah, just her body is the only thing that left us. You know, her memory is still here. So don't forget our children. Don't forget them.
Yeah. And what you just said, it might feel weird or uncomfortable. Well, if you think it feels weird or uncomfortable to you looking in from the outside, imagine how weird and uncomfortable it is for those of us who have lost a child.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second. I want you to, if you feel comfortable doing this, why don't you share a favorite memory of something that you and Tiffany did, or something somewhere that you and Tiffany went that just is a treasure when you think about it today?
I think it was our trip to Philadelphia to see Bruno Mars, because we made it a whole weekend. We didn't go straight up 95. We went through the country. So we rode through Amish Town. We rode through Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We went and got Philly cheesesteaks at this famous cheesesteak place in the middle of the city. And I'm a motorcycle fan, and they had this huge motorcycle repair shop that had all of these old timey motorcycles. And we just took pictures the whole weekend, and we just explored, and we wandered around, and we ate. Oh my gosh, we ate everything we could think that we could want to eat that weekend.
Yeah.
And then on Sundays, they used to have Sunday at the beach here in Richmond and Hampton, about an hour from here. So her and Autumn used to get in her car and follow me on my motorcycle so I could get some air and they could get a ride. And we would ride down to the beach and listen to the bands and get in the water and eat some hot dogs or something, some junk food, and come back. And I really miss those. I really miss those beach weekends.
Yeah,
but those were
sure.
our best. And then Tiffany used to like to mother me sometimes. So I'm kind of inquisitive and always getting into stuff. I'm Mikey. So I wanted to, at this point, I wanted to arch my eyebrows, and it was late at night. So I took a Q-tip. I know it's going to sound weird, but I wasn't thinking. I took a Q-tip and I had some Nair, and and she was in her esthetician classes, right? So I was like, well, Tiffany, if I just right around the top, she's like, Ma, I don't think that's a good idea. I think you should just wait and go get them done tomorrow at the shop. She said, but I'm telling you now, it's not going to turn out the way you think it is. So as soon as she went to bed, I'm like, oh, she don't know what she's talking about. And I got the little Q-tip and I just went across the top of my eyebrow. The next morning she woke up and she came in and she was talking to me, and I saw her looking from one side to the other, and then she looked. She said, you did it anyway, didn't you? So I ended up going to the shop to get somebody to draw my left eyebrow back on for a few weeks.
Oh, no.
But so she got a chance to laugh at me for quite a while, as I used to. Yeah.
I'm sure there are a lot of female listeners right now that can probably in some way, shape, or form identify with this. A little bit more difficult for me to quite understand all of that, but it does sound like it was one of those deer in the headlight moments when you saw yourself the next day, right?
Exactly. Aha, that's what she was talking about. The kid can teach the parent. You know what they say about the instructor and the student. The kid can teach the parent. We have to listen to our kids sometimes.
Yeah, you have to kind of drop that. You have to kind of drop that pride for a few minutes and humble yourself and realize that, yep, your kids absolutely can teach you. Right.
And you know, Greg, one of the best things that she taught me as I'm parenting her daughter.
What's that?
She had this gentle nature about herself.
Oh.
And she just loved her daughter. And so whereas I'm not going to say I'm stern, but I was a young mom and I had 2 kids and a home and I had parents, you know, I had a different life and obligations than Tiffany had. So I wasn't always able to be as patient or as quiet as maybe people. So I would say what I said. That's what I said. I don't want to repeat it, you know, and I was done with it. But she would take the time, and she was very careful with her words. She was very kind and she was very patient. And so I'm glad that she taught me that. You know, she used to tell me, she was like, sometimes you get excited and you talk fast and your voice goes up. And she said, it's just irritating, Mom. And so now when I'm feeling like I'm losing my patience with Autumn, I can hear that very clearly. Mm. And so it gives me pause.
Yeah, there's wisdom in that.
Yes.
Yeah. Sitrena, what have you learned on your grief journey about grief that you wish other people knew who haven't experienced what you've experienced?
Relationships are layers. And no matter what it looked like on the day they left, just look at the relationship in its totality. Yeah. I could have very easily been like, oh, my daughter was mad at me, and oh, we weren't speaking, and, you know, oh, this and oh, that. But I didn't. I was like, I knew my daughter loved me, and that's why we argued so hard with each other to get our point across, because we wanted to be together. So peel back the layers and remember the good times. Hold those to your heart and learn the lessons that are to be learned. Learn the lessons. I'm not saying to just gloss over it, but I'm saying that don't be so hard on yourself, because life is. And if you can take that humble pause before your loved ones hang up the phone or leave out the door, make sure you let them know. We might not agree. It has also been a gift to me. It's the last conversation me and my daughter had when I was establishing that boundary that caused the rift. I said, you might not agree with me, but I love you and I want the best for you. But I also have to take care of myself. I have to do what's best for both of us. And it's not because I don't love you. And before she walked out the door, she said, Ma, I know you're telling me the truth. She said, I just don't like it. So,
Yeah,
regardless of how it happened.
we don't get to always be prepared for those moments.
Right.
But I think what I heard in your sharing of that is the important thing is to keep that door of conversation open, keep that relationship open.
Yes.
And sometimes we do have to say hard things because we love our children or we love the other person enough that we're willing to have a conversation that might be a little edgy, but it's for their good. And I think if they know that ultimately we say it out of love, I think they're willing to receive it a whole lot more readily. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, Sitrena, we both know that there's a good chance that there's a mom or a dad listening today that's in a fresh season of grief, maybe even fresher than yours, because at 2.5 years, yours is still fresh. And they are desperately trying to find something that they can hang their hope on. They're desperately wanting to know, am I going to survive this? Because some days it doesn't feel survivable.
Right.
What would you say to that mom or to that dad that's listening to offer them something, to offer them hope?
God's grace is always sufficient. His
Amen.
mercy prevails. Hold on, because you will make it. One day to the next, one moment to the next, 1 second to the next. My worst moment in all of this, as trivial as it seems, is I was outside of the courthouse trying to get the custody papers for my granddaughter, and I locked my keys in the car.
Oh, no.
And I'm standing outside of the car, and I just broke. I was by myself, and I kept feeling like I was always going to be by myself. I felt like no one knew me or understood me like my daughter.
Sure.
And as hard as I had been looking for her, I was never going to see her alive again. And here I am. I can't even get myself from one place to the next because I'm just, you know what I'm saying? I just was beating myself unmercifully that day.
Yeah.
1 second to the next. Just hold on. And it gets better.
It does. And I think we have a tendency to project too much into the future. And instead of just trying to hold on to hope today and to do the things that we need to do today, because there are things that we have to continue to do, even on that grief journey, that become so trivial in comparison, that it can just seem pointless at times. But hang on, and like Sitrena just said, try to live it today, not tomorrow or next week, not next year, but today.
Yes.
And lean in. Wouldn't you agree to lean into the grief and to experience it instead of trying to either run away from it or to minimize it? Because eventually you're going to have to.
Or don't. I am a thinker. So do not be like me and want to intellectualize everything instead of feel it. I had to put a sticker on my refrigerator. Feel what you feel in the moment. If you want to cry, I don't care if it makes somebody else feel bad, right? Sometimes you have to pay attention to self-preservation. If you want to cry, cry. If you want to scream, scream. If you want to walk, whatever is going to help you, not harm you, whatever is going to help you get through that moment and bring some clarity to just that moment. That's what you need to do.
That is so true. So well said. Well, Sitrena, it has been such an honor to have you on a podcast today, and for you to open up, to be willing to be transparent, and to walk through some emotions that were difficult for you to do today. But I think that by sharing your story, that there are parents who are listening to us both in the present and sometime in the future who are going to be blessed by something that you shared today, because you've got a powerful story. And I think that they can find hope in seeing where you have come from that initial state of shock and trauma, to being in such a better place today, emotionally and physically and mentally.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to share. If I can just say this also, sometimes, especially when it's our children that pass away, people want to look and find out how they passed, but they're not looking at how they lived.
Right.
And we should give more honor to the goodness of our loved ones and how they lived and the positive that they brought to this life, instead of the one day that they left us. They left us in a blink of an eye, but how did they live? What did they do? What do you miss about them? What do you love about them? What are other people saying about them? Like, you can meet people that would tell you stories about your loved ones that you never even knew, because we're not with them all the time. So honor their life. Find a way through the grief of their death, but honor their life, because they deserved it.
Sitrena, I'm so glad you shared that, because I've heard others share this as well at times, and that is, no one's life is defined by a single moment in time. We need to take their life in the context of the whole life that was lived. And as you said, to honor their life, because we're all made in the image of God. And because we are, our lives matter. They matter to Him, so they should matter to each one of us.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Sitrena.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
If you find our podcast meaningful, we invite you to follow us so that you can automatically receive the latest episodes. Also, we'd like to invite you to contact us and talk with us about sharing your story on a future episode, because every story is important and matters to God. Please reach out via email at hope@emptychairendeavor.com. That's hope@emptychairendeavor.com. And as always, thank you so much for listening